Sister Marilda, Sister Onette, and Clarell, and everybody else, Elder Matthew, and everyone. It was wonderful the way that we came together in a short notice to have this done. We appreciate it. And I think that you deserve to be put on high. In my culture, where usually the grandmas and the grandpas, when they have kids that offer them something or give them something, they say, wow, kukaila. And they lift them on high, that they have to be high. This is my culture. So I always reflect on those things that I've learned when I was a kid. Estamos contentos de decirle gracias por la 2 sábados pasados que cuando vino el presidente de la conferencia y estaba aquí con nosotros, nosotros pudimos disfrutar de su presencia y pasar un buen momento. Y le damos las gracias por todo lo que has hecho para que ese día fue un hecho en nuestra vida y hemos participado para poder crecer juntos. Y hoy ya vamos a entrar en el tema que ya tenemos a continuar. Nous vous remercions d'être venus. Et la cause, nous comptons qu'on là, nous partager présence ce matin et que bon Dieu bénisse nous, ou même avec tout jeune garçon qui là matin. Son plaisir, son plaisir. To all the church, thank you. Lord Almighty, be with us as only you can. In Jesus' name I pray. Last time that we were here, we were in the book of Exodus chapter 1. And we were talking about what had transpired for the time that Moses came about. And there were two women that we say we're going to come back and talk about it to extrapolate a little bit more so we have more understanding of the role of these two women which are Shiphrah and Puah. Those were the two women. Dernière fois que nous étions là, nous avons parlé de Exode 1er, verset qui était lié, nous avons parlé de comment la vie Moïse était venue entrer dans le compte et comment deux filles qui étaient entrées dans le compte là pour être capables d'aider à sauver un pile dans yo qui t'a vivre dans le temps ça. Kounya là, estamos ya para entrar en lo que hemos empezado hace como 2 sábados atrás, que hablamos acerca de la vida de Moisés y acerca de lo que ha pasado en su vida cuando estaba yo ya en el reino de Faraón, y esas 2 mujeres que estaban ahí, que eran midwife, doulas, que ayudaron a salvar muchas vidas. De eso estamos hablando hoy. When we look into this family, we understand that Pharaoh deputized the whole populace. Pharaoh deputized the whole mass to go against the people that are serving the kingdom. All because they were multiplying. And I have told you, when we look in the past, for the last 5 years, we have understand what COVID was all about. And we mentioned that last time, what we call the so-called white people, they, by 2050, 2045, they will be in minority. So what happened, there is a lot that we do not understand. So much has been written about it. So what they have to do is to kill people. So the same thing that happened in the kingdom of Pharaoh is coming on again. So that was the reason I called it last time, a lesson in history. So now that we have this coming to us, we're facing it, there is no going backward. We either face it or face it. In one of the book of E.G. White, church ministry, she has a vision as far as the midnight cry, where she said that if the conflict come, meet it. So when we have to talk about what this church is going through, we're not talking only about the Seventh-day Adventist church, because there are people that are out there that belong to God. But however, I'm addressing to you as Seventh-day Adventists. So what we need to understand, At a certain time in history, which has already been marked that you and I do not know. We're going to have to face that conflict. Worst that can happen is having to know, as Sister Matthew said earlier this morning, as she knew that we were going to talk about this, and not knowing we're in that conflict. Thank you for the Holy Spirit. So, looking into Shiphrah and Puah, though that the Israelites live in Egypt, as we all are here in the U.S., we are living in Egypt. Don't think that you're living in the U.S. You're living in where? In Egypt. Why Egypt? Because everything that transpired in Egypt is right here in the U.S. Anything that transpired in Egypt is right here at Rome. Anything that transpired in Egypt is in France, is in Japan, is in Italy, the G7 per se. I want you to look at history, not only history, but a predictor of the future. That's the way we are to look at history. I know we have prophecies. I know the Bible contains prophecies, but when we look at history, by not knowing history, we repeat the same mistake. Looking onto what transpired, we come to understand these two ladies, they were living in the Pharaoh kingdom as just. They were living in a land of no mercy, but they were just in front of God. Who would have thought? The very people of God, many of them know that God will come because they started praying. When you look at the book of Exodus, and God heard their prayer. But they were not the only one among those that belong to God that were Hebrews. There are some that were not Hebrews that God raised for purpose. When we look in the lesson from the past, we all have certain lessons that we have learned in the past that oftentimes came back to life in our lives. We all have. If I were to ask one of you, how did you get to the U.S.? You would have a story to tell. Even those that's born here, they would have a story to tell. Because there's a connection between someone that came from overseas and that person is here, now have a son or daughter that is a U.S. citizen. So there is a lot to learn in history. What we must understand, never think that you are alone. Tout ça que nous fait, la façon que nous voyons, l'histoire qui passait, de ça que mesdames ça yo fait, pendant que yo étaient en Égypte, en pile prière t'a monté vers Dieu, mais yo même tout, bon Dieu t'a levé yo pour capable aider peuple là. Dios ha mandado a esas dos mujeres en esta historia que estamos hablando, Dios las levantaron a ellos para ayudar al pueblo, su pueblo. Por más que estaban en un lugar que ahí no celebraron a Dios, pero estaban delante de Dios. Así que même j'aime dire, pas garder USA comme étant USA, mais penser qu'on est en Égypte. Parce que même culture qui te gagne, c'est même yo pote ba. Et fait en Italie, en France, en Allemagne, même bagarre là. Ellen White, dans Church Ministry, déclaré les conflits à venir, pas courir pour lui. Parce qu'il connaît ou capable de compter sur mon Dieu. When we look into that story, we understand government is there for a purpose. And one of their purpose is to keep the power and authority. Once we look at Puah and Shiphrah, the name I kept looking throughout to find out the meaning of it, except certain authors give us a glimpse of what it might be. Why is that? Because their name is not Hebrew. And one author declared the name of Shiphrah may mean improvement, based upon the act to improve the life of others. And the life of Shiphrah, Shipua, may mean comfort. And I look and started to analyze what they say. You see, once you are a leader, you have to have a vision. Once you have the vision, you must have conviction. Once you have conviction, you must be passionate in order to get it to come to pass. So I'm looking at these two ladies. They were, in their own ways, such leaders to help for life to burgeoning in these women that are Hebrews. The understanding that we have, as far as we're concerned, is that those midwives are spiritual leaders and healers, akin to indigenous people. They were leaders in their own right. Because when you look at the verse, let's read verse 19 to 22 again. Vamos a leer el Éxodo capítulo 1, el versículo 19 a 22. De lo que ha pasado, que esas mujeres fueron líderes en sus maneras para ayudar al pueblo de Dios. Traté de buscar las significaciones de esos nombres, es Shiphrah y Pua. Y como no fueron hebreos, según algunos, que su nombre significa improvisionar. Y la otra, su nombre es consolar. Como el trabajo que fueron dedicados era un trabajo difícil, ya que tienes al pueblo ya diputado, delegado para matar a esas mujeres que dan la luz, a los hebreas que son embarazadas, que tienen que dar la luz, y ya esas dos personas que tenían que venir a aliviar esas situaciones, no lo hicieron así como lo dice el reino, el rey. En el libro de Éxodo capítulo 21, versículo 19 a 22, leemos. We're reading, Nablina livre Exode, chapitre 1er, verset 19 à 22. Read with me. And the midwife said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women. Hold on now. They are not what? Like. You see, whatever that human being has, wherever that you go, we will find the same, but in certain points there will be some differences. There will be some differences. So what are the differences in that conception, in that the text is telling us? Let's read. For they are lively and delivered ere the midwife come into them. Before the midwife showed up, they already have the baby out. One thing you must understand, the direction of giving birth is a very complicated process. God took it into hand to do the delivery himself. Not the midwife that come to give, to alleviate the people of God. God took it upon himself to do so before they showed up. There are situations that you're in. We don't know which door that you're going through. However, God already provided a solution before the problem even knock at your door. What I want you to understand, when you have to give birth as a woman, or you do not have to give birth, you are all affected. There is an artist in my country by the name of Jesse Foy, qui dit comme ça, un comédien haïtien qui dit, problème en femme, c'est pour toute femme. The problem of a woman, a comedian from my country that says, a woman problem is for every woman. Makes sense to me now. El problema de una mujer es por todas las mujeres. If you think that I'm crazy, go out there, start meeting a woman, you'll see how many women will fall upon you. They don't want to know what's going on. They're just part of the fight because this is a woman. And that's a good thing. So men, respect them. When we begin Exodus and see those midwives, not only Pharaoh spoke to them directly, not only they knew what not to do, they did anyway. Not only they did, even the people were deputized to do the same. But when you look at the story, we find them confronted by Pharaoh, and she taught what God has done for the woman. That's what she told. This, since I've been a Seventh-day Adventist since 1980, I've been a Seventh-day Adventist. I was 12 years old. That's a long time, about 40 years. So what we understand, wherever God's people located, God is there in the midst of the problem. Whether you bring the problem upon you or the problem comes to you, God is there. Sister Finette, dit pour me saluer l'église là, il y a un bagay que elle dit. Sister Finette told me to say hi to the church last time my wife and I spoke to her. There is something that she said on the phone. I would be crazy not to serve God. I would be stupid, crazy not to serve God. When we're trying to, to help her, to keep faith alive, she's telling us so much going on in her health. And we're praying for her. And she said, I would have been crazy not to serve God. Last time, the first 2 weeks of work that she worked, she sent the money to us, which we already gave to Victor. When we at these two ladies, I've never heard someone preaching about these ladies. Never. They have been mentioned, but not preaching about them. We understand the Exodus was not an easy one. Though that for us that are Haitian, Latinos, we come here, we are in the same Exodus. Don't you think because you're born here, you're safe? You're not. Because your mom is from Latin America or somewhere. You're not. The only person that can say something upon us, and when he talks, everybody must listen, is God himself. Though marginalized, the Hebrews, because of their God, they want their work, but they don't want their gods. But some of them keep faith alive. Though that the labor was double and they have to do the same amount of work, they did not discourage. They were overwhelmed, but not desperate. The situation, when you look at it, is something that can put you in your shoes when you do not see how you go about it. The growth of the Hebrew. Let me give you a short story. I remember in one of the preaching that I did here, I told you the indigenous people that was here in America, they used to worship when? On Sabbath. Remember that? I'm not saying this only to connect you with history, but this is the truth. I don't say that it is true. I say it is the truth. What does has to do? You understand that the people that is the most in America and South America, according to that historian Zam, they are from the tribe of Judah. I went to the website of the US. If you want it, I'll look for it with a picture. You can look at, and you would see what they say about them. They call them Hebrews. But in politics, they call you nigger. The word nigger means Hebrew. We have to research to come to that conclusion. But because we don't know, they mess our mind. It takes me time to study because that's, sometimes my wife will fight me. But there's nothing that I can do. The place where I am at, God put me there. This church not only have to be triumphant, I also have to triumph with the church. So there are so much philosophies out there, and even within the church. So if you do not spend time in prayer, if you do not spend time in studying, you will be in trouble. You see, there are sermons, according to a friend of mine, that they will not accept from a pastor. And I can understand that. If it is a leader that preaches it, no problem. That's a pass. But the pastor has to fly over. And I understand that. But what the person misunderstood, the same spirit is with all that. You don't have to be a pastor to preach well. You only have to have the connection. In my country, we have that adage that says, "Même dans l'enfer, gen moun pa." In Haiti, there is that adage that says, in hell, you even have someone that you know. And I understand it late in my time. And I say, that's true. Jesus already knew hell. So he advised us not to go through it. That I can understand what they say there. So the marginal people is being once more saved because they multiply too much. God wants people to worship, others want to kill people. Worse yet, they are placed by God. Pharaoh thinks men pose a threat to his power, but he overlooked the threat. Who did Pharaoh wanted to be killed? The boys. Pharaoh pensait que les gars des bagages différents. Il pensait que c'est le côté là pour le passer. pour capable de gagner succès. Mais c'est pas comme ça bagarre là évolué. What happened to Jesus when he was a boy? The same threat happened to Jesus. What did Jesus say about his followers? Everyone that is following me will go through the same threat. He doesn't say anyone that is a fan of me. There's a difference between fan and follower. A fan is not committed. A follower is committed. A fan will criticize his team. A follower will accept the fact we must continue on together. A fan will give up, but the follower is dedicated on the word. We look at Pharaoh, we understand men pose a threat to his power, but he overlooked. Why overlook? Killing them with forced labor doesn't work. When we have Shifra and Purah that is helping out, and they are Egyptian. So you may not know anyone wherever that you go. You may not understand what's going on, how you've been saved, but understand God's power works even in Egypt. In the ancient Near East, it was typical that midwife did certain tasks. And I try to understand the meaning again, comfort and improvement. Because after the baby is birthed out, they have to clean the baby and they have to put salt on the baby to prevent bacteria. So they make the baby kosher. Lo que estamos viendo de todo lo que hemos dicho es que cuando uno está en Egipto vas a encontrar de todo tipo de problemas. Por más que estás en problema, siempre Dios está en lugares que uno no espera. Esas dos mujeres echaron todo lo que pudieron en sus poderes para poder conservar la vida en vez de destruir la vida. Même les bagailles étaient difficiles, ils ont accepté, confronté, ils mettaient vie en danger, mais il faut y avoir la vie à un lot. Church, we are life because Jesus wants us to be life. Shifra and Purah were spiritual leaders. In my view, according to the Bible says they fear God. When you fear God, you are a follower, not a fan. Let me close. The courage of these two women, us Christians are going to need from it. La fuerza de esas dos mujeres, nosotros cristianos vamos a necesitar partir. Courage from ça, nous besoin dans la vie. En tant que chrétien, nous besoin. We needed to confront the internal issues. We needed to confront the external issues. We needed to confront the world. We needed to confront on all sides, but know that you're not the one making the confronting. God will be there for us. It is fascinating to read the story. Last time that I sat down in front of my computer, this week, it was my wife that came and said, it's time to get up. Go walk, go do something. Sometimes I do. I would go take a break. If there is something that I need for the house, I will go. But I wake up very early. I started working very early, sometime around 2, sometime around 4. That's my routine. So if someone called me at this time, sometime you will find me. You will find me. The other time I forgot to take my phone, but you will find me. What I'm saying that is fascinating is how God bless a civil disobedience. They were disobedient to Pharaoh, but obedient to God. They were disobedient. Another way, their life is in danger, was in danger, but they did not care. Once you're a follower of God, death is gain. That's what Paul tells us. They know they face death, but they were careless about it. Fascinating. You must understand, church, this history is now a prediction, a prophecy that we need to face altogether, no exception. If you carry the name Christian, then you're part of the struggle. You may not be a midwife, but you're being marked for your name. I want you to go back to the book Final Crisis, Preparation for the Final Crisis. If you have not read those books or you read them before, go back again. Last time Sister Matthew gave us one about last year, I believe. Last year, around this month, Sister Matthew gave us one, I believe. If it's not last year, it was the year before. Some of us that came to church early, she was right in the front and she gave one to each one of us. Go back. Go to chapter 4 of that book. And after that, you read it. She give you all the verses under. Read the verses. Part of it is Fernando Joy. That's the name of the author on that book. And part of it is E.G. White. What I'm saying, there are people that do not like conflict. They always want peace. Jesus himself say, I come not to do what? For peace, but for conflict. In order for us to get through the Red Sea, there were a lot of conflicts. And the beginning of it were these two women, Shiphrah and Puah, improvement and comfort. What I'm telling you, instead of waiting for someone to do for you, start to improve your life, your Christian life. You may not see the comfort right now, but God is there to bring it. May God bless you. May